Hello, everybody. I think this is my first reading since. Say hi to Mila. I think I'm going to move this a little bit. You can stay where you're at, Mila. There. Hello. So, interesting developments. Hi, Essie. Good to see you. Hi, Sammy. There's a tail behind me. Angela Johnson. Hello. Eliza. Hello. Mama B. Great name. Sammy B. Mary Rice. Angela Johnson. Catherine Herrick. Joe Van Allen. Sammy. Millicent. Twin Flames. It's going kind of fast. Jan Chapman. LaRonda. Joella, Ronnie Shalom, Pamela Winston, Karen Albrecht, hello. Hello to Laura Sue and Sarah Eschweiler and Alice Robbins, Phyllis Rohan. Yes, I take a few minutes to say hi. It's, sometimes I need to just say hi to people. William, hi. William Shopson. Pamela, welcome. I think I've said hi to most people. Barbara Young, Carolyn Encoris, Celia Torres, Sherry Berry, Patricia. Very unexpected developments. Hello, Deborah Nash, Susan Johnson, blah, Julie Trotto. I'm going to keep saying hi to people as we go along. I want to talk a little bit about the remote views that I had. And then if people want to talk a little bit about the remote views, it's kind of weird. You don't really get to decide what your remote views are sometimes. Sometimes you go into a remote view and is unstable. Is my connection unstable? Yeah, it said that I was buffering. Is it okay now? Okay. So I'm just going to give you the remote and what I took away from the remote last night. This was actually a couple days ago. Sometimes I get too lazy to get up and write a remote. And then I hope that I can remember all of it. What's going on here? Oh, there it is. Sometimes I'll do a remote and then I'll think, wow, that was really insightful, but I'm too tired to get up and write in my journal. I'll just go to sleep and then I'll write it in the morning. That's probably a bad idea because the truth is that when you're in the energy, you're really going to get a lot of really great information. So it's a good idea to just get up and write it as fast as you can. But this is a couple days old, so I might have lost some stuff. But the first remote I did a couple of days ago was on President Trump, and this was before the bombing. The assassination of Sulemani. It was interesting. I tried to put myself in the shoes of Donald Trump. I did the heart-centered remote viewing technique, and I tried to put myself in his situation while he was at Mar-a-Lago for the holidays. Oh, yeah, that was really cool that last night Johnny and Lynn and Becca were on. It was really fun. Oh, she's here. Hi, House of Lenneman. Did a great job last night. So anyway, last night, or a couple nights ago, I did a remote on Donald Trump. And as I was sitting in the energy of Donald Trump, I heard myself say that everybody has betrayed me. Everyone has betrayed me. So the feeling I had in that energy was that I had increasing paranoia, which has me a little bit concerned, just because Alzheimer's is associated. One of the first signs of Alzheimer's can be paranoia, paranoid accusations, accusing people of trying to get you, accusing people of. So it becomes at that point, you know, I'm remote. I'm just going to document it, whether it's real or not. But from the perspective of Donald Trump, it's real that everyone has betrayed him. Nobody loves him. Everyone's out to get him, even his daughter. No one can be trusted. So this looks a lot like one of the escape hatches they have is Article 25. So as we move closer towards pushing the president into resignation, if he doesn't have the mental wherewithal to resign, at that point you could issue Article 25. So this is a president who theoretically going forward is going to be given a lot of opportunities not to embarrass himself or the nation and not to ruin it for the senators that are up for re-election in 2020. So it looked like from the remote that he couldn't trust his wife, he couldn't trust his daughter, he couldn't trust his son-in-law. And everybody was turning on him. And then he seems to have found out that people had spoken, people were speaking about him with and his mental health. So that's the feeling I got when I got into that energy. Last night, I tried to do a remote on the assassination of Sulemani, and it looked a lot more complicated than I think it's being talked about in the news. It's not like Donald Trump went off and spied on Soleimani on his own. It's kind of interesting because when we did remotes a couple of months ago, even a couple of weeks ago, it looked like NATO was in a holding pattern. Nobody really knew what they were going to do. Everybody was kind of holding. Now we know that what Russia and China want to do. They want to plow forward and they want to build infrastructure that goes all the way deep into Africa so that they can get trade out, so that they will no longer have to deal with embargoes or terrorist attacks on their convoys when their convoys are going out of places like Chechnya. They just want, Putin just wants the trade to go out, nobody to get hurt. This is what he's saying. And he and China are building infrastructure. They're also hiring private armies. Putin is one of the number one Russia is one of the number one countries to hire private soldiers of fortune, these from all over the world. And their job is to just keep these new roads and these new trade routes, to keep them open and moving. So if you look at the remote view we did a couple of, what was it? Was it almost a year ago at this point? It felt like what we were building up to is that Trump would be pulled out of the White House, and just as he's being pulled out, Putin was going to push forward. So it looks like the United States can no longer financially afford to maintain all of these blockades and routes and continue to police all these areas. And it looks to me, as the remote viewer, like the purpose was to control trade, control who could trade, control the price of things, that this was the purpose. It didn't have anything to do with patriotism or, but what happens, because everybody's trying to get their trade out, is that the person who's your competition becomes the enemy. And you start demonizing the other and because you want the resources. So with the current attack of Soleimani, it puts Putin in an interesting situation because we know that Putin is an ally of Syria. Putin is an ally of Iran. And he's now engaged in trade with Turkey. He had permission from Turkey to start building his pipeline. His pipeline goes through Turkey. He also seems to have a pretty good relationship with Netanyahu. And he seems to be getting along okay with the Prince of Saudi Arabia. It's interesting, right? Because traditionally, Iran and Saudi Arabia didn't get along very well, like for like 1,000 years or more. So it could be that they're working on some type of a treaty, Putin, Netanyahu, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Trump. If they could work on a peace treaty with China, etc., then it would allow for more free trade in the area. American troops could pull out and they could be replaced by proxy armies, armies for hire, as opposed to government armies. And then these proxy armies could be paid for by the collective countries that are overseeing the trade. Oh, thank you, Jane. Very, very, very sweet. So that is, I think, what Russia and I think that's what Russia and that is what China want. They want to just open the area up, create new trade routes, get a peace treaty for the countries involved, get rid of armies, instead have hired hands that can police the area. And so if this action by Trump does anything, it's probably going to position the powers that be, force them into negotiations. That's what it looked like. Hello, Black Swan. Yeah, so Eric Prince, it would make sense that Eric Prince would be meeting with these persons because his company would be supplying the proxy armies that would be policing the area long term. But if you're going to do something dramatic like that, you've got to get the American people to accept it slowly. You can't just pull out, give the area to China and Russia, and then hope the American public feels okay about it. So there is this feeling like this has been going on for a really long time. It's interesting, when you go into the energy on the assassination of Suleiman, it didn't look like it was just Trump going rogue. It looked like he was monitored by intelligence agencies in Israel, Great Britain, etc. People had a rough idea where Suleiman was, and then they had to make the decision whether or not to take him out. It's part of what Pompeo was saying was actually true. It did look like they were amassing troops. It did look like they were monitoring it. It did look like they were either going to have to pick a first strike or a second strike. This reminds me of the Six-Day War in Israel in 1967, where they could see Jordanian troops on the border and Israel chose a first strike. So this looks like a similar situation of a first strike rather than being vulnerable and waiting for Iran to retaliate. And it looked like Iran's economy was decimated by America's policies, just like Russia had been, just like Syria was having problems with their war. It also looks like Syria is trying to get back into Lebanon with the help of Iran, which is why Hezbollah is there. And that's really the direction we're headed in, is to try and get a peace treaty with Putin. So if Trump did something aggressive like this, it was theoretically to push us towards a peace treaty. Why did Trump do this? Well, I think we just talked about that. It puts Putin and Netanyahu are buddies. Russian is the third language in Israel. Russia is also involved in military trade with Iran. So if anybody is, oh, thank you very much. That's very kind of you, Cindy Keel Johnson. That's very sweet. So what's happening is that if anyone's going to negotiate peace between Iran and Israel, it would be Putin. Putin in the United States, theoretically. But I think something was genuinely going on. And I think that they had to make the decision whether or not to assassinate him or not. And they made, because they've had this opportunity in the past. Yes, you did, Cynthia, you made it. All right, so we'll do a simple prayer. We'll shuffle the cards, and I'm just going to go in and check to see what the future is going to be regarding the conflict with Iran. Sound good? All right, I want to call on white light protection for myself and my viewers as we ask permission from Spirit to access the Akashic records. We call on our spirit guides and good angels to be with us. Give us the clarity and the wisdom needed to empower all of us to make the best decisions for ourselves, our family, the planet, the people we love. That is the one. What is going to be with America and Iran? It almost made me feel like Putin had thrown Iran to the wolves. Let's take a look. Peace and love to all. Couldn't agree more. Let's see what we got here. A new partnership, but you can see an addiction card. Addiction or partnership or business with the devil. This feels to me like a planned attack. A thief tries to flee a situation, and then there's a business offer here or a financial offer. Hermit card. You know, it's interesting. This is reminding me of the fact that Pelosi, we've been seeing a lot about Pelosi talking with the Pentagon, looking at money, travel associated with the Queen of Wands, some kind of inheritance or karma associated with an offer that has to do with finances. The Emperor or reason coming in, scholarship coming in. It looks to me like the academics of whether or not they had the authority to do this is going to go into question. And the power of Congress is going to come forward because Nancy Pelosi is coming in. It looks like we could be seeing Congress stifling or controlling the president, and it may force us into, my concern is that it could force us into a situation where we do have to negotiate with people we don't currently want to negotiate with. At the same time, the powers that be understand that we do have to create some kind of peace treaty because we can't financially afford to keep paying for all of these armies, all of these wars, etc. But I think that Nancy Pelosi is going to come forward. I think they're going to control this president a little bit. And I think without him, they're going to look, Putin pretty much got what he wanted in the sense that the international community is starting to take his side more and more, that the American blockades and intimidation of allies isn't working for them. So I think we could see Putin agreeing no longer to interfere with our politics if we will sit down with him and negotiate some kind of new trade deal. And I think that that's probably where we're headed, because that's always what it was about. Oh, thank you, Jamie. That was very sweet of you. I don't know if I had a chance to say thank you yet. It's interesting also that they haven't come out and talked about the fact that he blocked aid to Lebanon, and Iran is in Lebanon, right? Iran, Russia are in Lebanon, which borders Syria, and Syria has historically tried to get into Lebanon, and it's vulnerable. It's the northern border. Israel is vulnerable, right? Because of rockets and drones, etc., that have come in from Lebanon that are associated with Iran's proxy armies. So I'm surprised more isn't coming out about that. All right. We've got time for some blitzes. I mean that Putin would agree to deal fairly with us if we deal fairly with them and allow. Look, they're pushing all the way into Libya. They're going to build that train system in Libya, which we bombed. That's what they want. They want to open up these new roads, this new infrastructure. We've talked a lot about this. It's all that Putin talked about when we went in. And I feel, to be honest with you, as a remote viewer, kind of like they won in a sense, that China and Russia won, in a sense that we can't economically continue to do this. We don't have enough money. Our children don't have school books in Oklahoma. Our infrastructure is falling apart. We owe the debt is trillions of dollars. Inevitably, we're going to have to sit down with China, Iran, Turkey, Israel, Russia, and get a new peace treaty. In that sense, I think Putin did win, which is kind of what we did to them, bankrupting the Soviet Union. So now, in a sense, the same thing has happened to us because we're maxed out. That's what it looks like. Yeah, but the problem, there's real legitimate concerns about security that the Americans have if you open up trade and then people are trading weapons, nuclear weapons. If you're opening up Lebanon to our enemies, how safe would Israel be theoretically? So there are legitimate fears that that would have to be addressed, but at the same time, it's inevitable that that's where we're headed because we're bankrupted. We don't have enough money to keep this going. That's what it looks like. Yeah, the crypto coins where they were paying through cryptocurrency. How much does Bannon have to do with all of this? It was interesting. We did remote viewings 2.5 years ago when Bannon was at the White House. It looked like he was wearing a wire and he was an informant. It was so weird. It was like he was brought into the Trump campaign a year into the campaign because it was almost like he was working. It was like he was a right-wing nut job, but he was also an informant, and then he's also the one that testified against Roger Stone and got Roger Stone convicted. So he presents very strangely, Bannon, almost as if he's an informant or that he's working both sides. It's very strange. Yeah, but he's also the one that got Stone convicted and seems to have. He's a very interesting guy to remote. Soleimani, yeah, it looked to me like he was watched for a really long time. It felt to me when you went into the energy, I don't know anything about the military, but that to do an operation like that takes weeks and months and even years to track people and to know the schedule of Sulemani, to have informants in place that tell you what his plans or how he's mobile, to plan with other countries to mobilize a first strike, to know exactly where he is. You usually coordinate intelligence with other countries, and then you follow the subject for a while. So what I keep hearing when I go into the remote is that they had many chances to take the shot, and they tracked him again. He was planning a series of attacks against U.S. troops, and they were given a choice. If you're going to take him out, here's your opportunity. And they made that, and this time they made that decision. But from Soleimani's perspective, when you do a remote on Soleimani, that's interesting because he's very confident when he was alive that there were many, many other soldiers that could take his place. So the mission is great. From Soleimani's perspective, the mission was greater than the individual. So if one person dies, that's okay because there's 100 more that can replace him. That was his philosophy about life. That he felt that he was living for something greater than himself. Yeah, I want pink love, rock and roll. I wonder what Putin wants. Well, Putin is an ally of Iran, which is why it gets to be confusing. So the only benefit that Putin would have, since they are an arms dealer for Iran, the only possible benefit would be that it forces us in to negotiate a peace treaty. And it would put Putin in the middle of it so he can be the great peacemaker. That's the only benefit to doing something like this. But it's scary because it suggests that we could, it's like the remotes of Putin, where Putin was so aggressive. He seemed to be saying that he was ready to go to war. That's how angry he was. The Dubious Friends of Donald Trump. I don't know. Is that a film or something? No, I haven't. Deutsche Bank. Okay. Does anybody have any questions, or are we going to finish early today? The Deutsche Bank findings. The son of the man who committed suicide released them today. All right. I don't know anything about this, but let's go ahead and look at Deutsche Bank. Thank you, Greta. What is going on with Deutsche Bank? Deutsche Bank. It's a new beginning in the investigation, but you can see a 7 of Wands is there, which would suggest feelings of being defensive, defending territory, excuses. I keep going back to that remote when we followed the energy that as Trump was leaving, Putin would be pushing forward. The King of Wands. An investigation was. I don't think there's any way they can protect this president anymore. And there are things happening that are outside of what a judge is going to make a decision. You can see a judgment coming in. This is the judge's car, a new beginning in the springtime, attempting to defend oneself, walking away from a battle that can't be won. This is also Yehuda, a spy card. I keep feeling like they already knew about this. Nancy Pelosi gets her wish. This is one of the things they were waiting on that was going to get released, but this is not the only thing that's going to get released. Putin is going to release a bunch of stuff. I swear, this whole thing, it almost looks like Putin agrees to throw Trump to the wolves in exchange for negotiating directly with us. I will stop harassing you, but can we negotiate this? It's a very the only thing that's interesting here, I always feel like Pelosi has a lot more power than people are publicly aware of. Isn't that weird? Yeah. And then a peacekeeper or a peace offering. Very interesting. Let's look at McConnell because we haven't looked at him. Let's look at McConnell. What is going on with Mitch McConnell? What is going on with Mitch McConnell? Oh, I wanted to also say thank you to a couple of people. First off, I wanted to say thanks for this beautiful tea table. What do they call it? A tablecloth from Saya in She's in Thailand. Thank you so much for it. It's beautiful. It's green and pink, and I absolutely love it. I also wanted to give a shout out to Mark Rhodes, who sent me about 3 pounds worth of gourmet coffee. So I'm a very happy girl, and I'm pumped up on some amazing coffee out of San Francisco. So thank you to Mark Rhodes. I wanted to do a quick thank you for that. All right, what's going on with Mitch McConnell? Mastery. The master works at his craft. Police or military action coming in. You know, it's always the same thing when you go into Mitch McConnell's energy. It's a feeling like it's all about the courts. It's all about the courts. Whatever's happening to Trump, he doesn't care, because Trump gives him the time necessary in order for him to feel the courts or to do his job. Around him can be complete and total chaos, but he doesn't care because his needs are being met. What is interesting, the lesson to learn from somebody like Mitch McConnell is that there are some people in this world that have the ability to shut everything off and just focus on their goal in life. And if you do that, regardless of who you are, you're probably going to be fairly successful. And that's what we learned from Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell is all about the courts, and he doesn't allow himself to be sucked into drama or any kind of controversies. Instead, he just focuses on his job, and his job is to stack the courts. And so nothing Trump does matters. None of the outside noise matters. The only thing that matters is stacking the courts. The unholy alliance. The unholy alliance, where he basically has agreed to leave this president alone in order to have his personal needs met. That's his agreement with this president. There's also a feeling like he's just about ready to abandon this president because his personal needs have been met. Lovers can also indicate infidelity in a relationship with somebody, unhealthy relationship, lover, addiction, codependency, walking away, going towards another lover. It's over. Knight of Pentacles, stopgap. Somebody offers McConnell something that causes him to leave. He gets it because he has his wish. McConnell has what he wants. McConnell has seen very few consequences for his actions. The time could come in the very near future where McConnell has to begin to answer for his actions. But he's also working on contracts and money. This is probably trade with or jobs with Russia. This Ace of Pentacles is coming in for him. But his relationship with Trump doesn't matter. All that matters to him is that his agenda be met. And there has been very few consequences for his actions. In fact, to some extent, it feels as if there's very little that Nancy Pelosi can do to stop Mitch McConnell. That's the frustration for her. But she can try and negotiate secretly with him, and half the time Trump is not even in the loop. It's really about negotiating with Mitch McConnell because what he wants is trade and business for his state and to stack the courts with conservative judges. I mean, in a way he's kind of like Mueller in the sense that they both have a similar trait, which is that they are single-minded in their ability to focus. Hillary Clinton is like that too, just focusing on highly accomplished people. whether you like what they've accomplished or not, have this ability to stay focused and not be distracted. This is not at all my capacity. I do not have this skill. Thank you, SG. That's very kind of you. I really appreciate it. That's the lesson of highly successful people, right? Is that they are like Mitch McConnell, they're like Hillary Clinton, and other highly, people that have been successful at achieving what their goals were, whether we like what they've achieved or not, is that they will just focus. It doesn't matter how much chaos is around, like the Knight of Swords, the chaos around Mitch McConnell, he's just focused on what he wants, and everything else is squirrel. Yeah, I mean, they say that's the criticism of why the Democrats keep losing, is we have a really broad coalition, and what the Republicans and the Russians both have been able to do is to create create fake Facebook accounts. Feminist against Elizabeth Warren. Yeah, we feminists. We women in our 50s hate Elizabeth Warren, right? I mean, come on now. So what they're doing is divide and conquer. They're trying to get us to believe that these fights are real, and then so they'll take a crack in somebody's campaign, like Buttigieg has some fairly insensitive history. He's insensitive, but he's young and probably teachable, I think. I believe people can be taught. I believe people can change. But if he's going on Fox News, he and Tulsi Gabbard, and pulling some of the fans away from the Republicans towards the Democrats, then that's a problem for the Republicans. So they will go into those candidates that are a threat and start to create this war between, anti-Semitism is very popular for that reason. It's divide and conquer. What's important is for us to be aware of it and then just to stay focused. Yeah, they're trying to destroy. I'm not saying I'm a huge fan of Pete Buttigieg. I'm skeptical that we're going to have the same kind of racism if Buttigieg was president that we do under this current president. It's just divide and conquer. I'm not saying the guy doesn't have problems. He has problems, but his problems are not the same problems as the current administration. Let's go ahead and we will do another blitz. No, I don't see us removing the judges. I know other readers have said that the judges will be removed, but I don't think there's a strong constitutional argument for that. Because the Senate, a lot of it's being approved via the Senate, and so it's out of the hand, and the Senate has the majority. That's not how we're going to get progressives. How we're going to get progressives is to stay focused, realize when we're being played, and to make sure to get out the vote. McConnell's wife, what is her name? Chow? Okay, let's go ahead and look at Elaine Chow. Yeah, the student loans. Well, I went to med school, so I think I owe, if you were to take all the student loans owed by everybody watching this channel right now and combine them, my student loans would probably be more. Elaine Chow. All right, let's take a look. I'll look at the student loans after Elaine Chow. It's interesting. Elaine Chow comes as wealthy, the empress, fertile, abundant. You go into this energy of Elaine Chow and you feel like this is a person who's always been wealthy, who's always been successful, who's always gotten what she wants. Because she had so much power and allies behind her, she always got what she wanted. There is something about money that they're looking at that had been exchanged, or that she had moved money around that they were looking at. The problem with this type of extreme wealth is that when people don't feel like answering questions, they don't have to. There's a confidence amongst the wealthy that they don't have, the laws don't apply to them. And so what the laws are is it's wealthy people who are above the law inflicting the law on the poor. Doesn't have to answer questions. Ace of Swords is what she's moving in. Regarding the money, Ace of Pentacles. There's a confidence here in this individual that they've always been allowed to do whatever they like, and they will continue to be able to do whatever they like. There's something here about international business. You can see a 3 of Wands here, new offers. I don't know where she comes from, if she comes from Taiwan, her family, or Japan business. I know her father is a banker, so there's something about possibly family relationships back home, the world stage, and money. But what's interesting about this energy, just to be in the energy of, to remote view somebody like that, is that this is like an emperor or an empress. That's the kind of, it's like, of course I don't have to answer to you. It's very much the world leader, the empress, the refuses to answer questions, does whatever they want, is beholden to no one. This is someone who feels that they can skirt the law or create the law because of their position in life, and it has never entered their mind that it would be any other way. That's what I see for Elaine Chow. Sorry. All right, let me go ahead. Oh, smuggled. What's this about fentanyl? No. Chinese. Okay. Why is she allowed to be in the cabinet? Power. Let me look at the student loan crisis. Student loan crisis. Student loan crisis. It's going to be with the student loan crisis. I don't know. I don't think anything's being done at this time. You can see a 10 of Swords with a 7 of Cups. So there's a feeling that people are completely confused. I don't see a plan. It's like the student crisis is falling apart because nobody's dealing with it. The only persons that are talking about this are Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, but it's like the impending crisis that's happening because no one's dealing with it. A situation of strife also. hanging up strife, poverty cards, stress, harvesting the money. This is also green capitalism, rejoicing. Very interesting. Very interesting. They are going to find a way to fund the debt. They're not going to write off the debt to the government. They're going to find an income source. It looks like an income source is they're going to be able to generate an income that goes directly to paying off the debt. And it looks like it has something to do with green capitalism, because you can see the Seven of Pentacles harvesting coin from the tree and a healing. So some kind of program is going to emerge. Yeah, it's a new contract. A new contract is going to emerge for student debt, whereby the government puts laws and businesses into effect that are green capitalism, and a portion of the earnings goes to pay off the national student debt. It's the best way to explain it. So in that way, the debt is cushioned. So it looks like they will probably have people pay a minimum of their student debt over a certain period of time, say 20 years, 25 years. Then instead of going after the person for the taxes, the interest or what needs to be absorbed will be paid out through some type of a program that has to do with profits from the government's green industries. Is that interesting? I wonder if Cortez is working on that. Is that an interesting idea? So say, for example, you do business with green companies where all government buildings are going to be retrofitted with modern solar power. So you create all these green contracts, and then we make a profit from those companies, and then that Green New Deal, a slice of that goes in to pay these forgiven loans. So the loans are not entirely forgiven. You still have to pay what you can for the loan you took out, but instead of going after the student after the 20, 25 years, say, for example, I'm going to owe $100,000 on taxes, but I'm paying every month. In a situation like that, that'll be absorbed by the profits from the Green New Deal. That's basically what the plan looks like. All right, we have time for one more. Wasn't that cool? What a nice idea. I wonder who came up with that. That's rather sweet of them. All right, everybody. This was fun. I like hanging out with you guys. You cheer me up. When I get lonely, I just go on YouTube and hang out with people who watch this channel. Hi, Kathy. Good to see you. Kathy W. Harry's mom is here. Lovely. Yes, white light. Okay. What's up with Nancy? I saw Nancy. We already did a throw on her before. Oh, Joey and Shalom Whimsy. Hi, Debbie. Iran, I think that because everything had to do with the trade and the blockades, they were probably trying to get into Iraq. But I did a remote a couple of days ago, and it looked like Americans were going to pull out of some of these areas and basically tell the Iraqi people, okay, you're going to have to protect yourselves because we're out of here. I still see more troops pulling back. Oh, thank you, Brenda. Very sweet of you. The attack on Soleimani, from what I saw in last night's remote, they were tracking him for a while. I think the Israelis were tracking him. I think the British were tracking him. I think that they had held off on assassinating him, even though they had a rough. I think the Saudis probably were tracking him also. And from what it looked like in last night's remote, they knew that where he was located, and that they were probably mobilizing attacks against Saudi Arabia and Iraq, I would assume. But I heard somebody say in intelligence, whether it was the Israelis or the British or Saudis, but somebody had communicated to Trump's team, if you're going to engage in this attack, this is your window, this is your opportunity. So somehow that communication happened, from what it looked like to me. And then the decision was made to do it this time. That had a chance to do it in the past, but this looked like a first strike. That rather than sitting back like sitting ducks and just waiting for these amassed troops from Iran to engage in an attack, they decided to do a first strike. And that also sent a message to Iran that just how deep the intelligence had gotten, just how deep NATO's intelligence was, and the capacity to take out whoever we like. And I think that was the message to Iran, at least from what it looked like to me. Yes, the drone hit. All right, we're going to go ahead and close today. So I'm not getting a lot of questions for some reason. Drones in Colorado. I would not be surprised if that was just regular people. Let's look at, okay, well, we're getting questions about Nancy Pelosi, so we'll do Nancy Pelosi, and then we'll call it a day. I think he's going to be out by spring. No, I don't think the drone strike was used to reelect Trump. Because when I went, which surprised me, because when I went into that remote last night, it looked like all these different countries, Israel, Britain, Saudi Arabia, all were locked on the same target. And they could see troop mobilization and military maneuvers, and they had been watching them. And then it was like I intercepted some kind of communication between, it might have been Israel or another country in the United States, saying that it would be a clean strike and that this was their opportunity. So if they were going to do a first strike, they needed to go now. And the decision was made to do a first strike. So that actually looked like the truth of what happened. All right. Nancy Pelosi. It didn't have to do with reelected. In fact, quite the opposite. I think a lot of people feel like it could harm Trump's campaign for reelection. But in order to do something like that, it takes weeks and months of tracking somebody. It doesn't just happen overnight. It's planned for a very long time. It doesn't just happen. Something like that has to be choreographed, monitored, watched. It's the main thing I'm getting from these cards is that when you throw on Nancy Pelosi, the final outcome was the main thing, which is that she's waiting on intelligence. You can see Page of Pentacles moving in for her. That finishes off this investigation. Things moving victoriously for her over the coming months. A strife issue. This is Trump's card, conflict with, heartbreak. I think she's working very, very closely with generals, the intelligence, the FBI, etc. I think she's working very closely with them because of her position, and it's as if she puts her back to it and allows the powers that be to do their job. But there is something she's waiting on that she's going to receive or has received that probably finishes things off for this president. This president is going to be written off. All right. That is what I see. Thank you, everybody who came in and spent the hour with me. And have a good rest of the weekend, everybody. I will be back at work next week. If anyone wants to have their January readings, I'd love to work with you. You can go to tarotwithwhimsy.com. And if you're in the LA area, you can come directly into the office and see me. If you're not in LA, then it's a phone reading. Did everybody have fun? Thank you, Angela. Thanks for showing up, everybody. Bye, everyone. Take care. Thanks for the support, everyone.